This is obviously getting to the point now where people are going to say, this is getting a little too close for comfort, Gene.
Well, that's again for show. That's the white hats. It's false flag.
Okay, so you believe that's all show?
Yeah, you remember when they had people flying drones and they came out and picked the person up right away?
Yeah.
Yeah. They can bring that stuff down, EMP it down, particle weapon it down. It wouldn't even get close. Not even close. You're talking an Air Force base, a strategic base? Definitely it won't get close. They monitor everything from space.
And by the way, for America, within the constitutional operation of America, this is an L event. This is a extinction level event. If we don't get this right, America as we grew up, believed it to be, knew it to be, ceases to exist, and we become part of the gray goo of this globalist new world order that they want to do.
Under the belief that although this is used to fulfill prophecy, that we've had to take out Iran, we had to stop them from having a nuclear, any kind of nuclear capabilities. Am I right about that?
Absolutely. And they already had a nuclear capability with old Soviet missiles they got way back when. Who knows if they work right, but they were encased in lead, so you couldn't find the warheads. The warheads were. And so that's already there. They're trying to build their own new ones, nuclear warheads, so that they could create World War III as per Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma, where the Middle East is the beginning of World War III, and it conflagrates out between the Muslims and the Christians. And that's what they're trying very hard to fulfill, but they don't even have much leadership left. I mean, they've got first tier, second tier, third tier. I don't know how many tiers are gone. And then on top of that, you've got a situation where, they want to bring the Shah back because they don't have anybody to negotiate a peace with. They've eliminated almost all of their naval forces, the U.S. submarine force and Navy and Air Force and Space Force. And they've lost quite a lot of their facilities, but they're striking out, trying hard, because the cabal is not going to go down. We may get to a black swan event like 107 said, where we have a possibly a nuclear blast, maybe over a mountain somewhere or out on the ocean. It could be blue beam, a AI kind of holographic thing, and not really a real nuclear blast, because the Space Force and the Air Force and our military, with the Golden Dome, can take out anything coming out. And so that could be just for show. Already a lot of what you can see, some of the missiles doing really strange things, and buildings blowing up, and then when the blast is gone, the building's still fine.
Trump has come out and said we've blasted everything. It's the war is basically over. We've won. But, they just hit a nuclear facility in Dimona, and they're also firing off missiles to Diego Garcia.
Yeah. A lot of Diego Garcia's the dumb underneath. The on surface stuff is not the big stuff. So, they fired there. They fired on United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Dubai. And that was kind of a false flag, because what you saw in Dubai, where like the buildings were hardly marred or damaged. I even saw, a series of things blowing up in the sky, and it made the Big Dipper constellation in the sky. But yeah, is that accidental? I don't think so.
Humble. I think, Trump is going to just drill, baby, drill. I don't think it's a concern to him, the oil. I think he's going to bring oil refineries back here, production of oil back to America, and create jobs here in America. Am I right about that?
Absolutely. And, already made deals with Japan because
Right.
they rely heavily on oil going through the Straits of Hormuz, almost exclusively. And he just made a deal with the lady, Prime Minister of Japan, so that they would get oil from us. And that brings a lot of billions of dollars into the U.S. economy. And it also helps them because they're no longer reliant on something that, a choke point, like the Straits of Hormuz. It can be choked off, and then they can't get their oil because of the whim of the Houthis or the, which is, of course, Iran-backed terrorist group, or Hamas or Hezbollah, or, any of these terrorist organizations, or countries like Iran, even Israel, if they were to choose to do so. And so we're seeing, it that way it could go across the Pacific, which is a pretty huge, you can't make that a choke point, it's pretty huge. So it's upgrading a lot of things. And of course, our economy and jobs and all of that is going to make a huge difference. Also, he's bringing back a lot of industry. Of course, steel mills and things are coming back, which when they were deindustrializing America, they said they couldn't bring those back in 50 years. Or sorry, it was 50 years ago, but he brought it back in just a year or two.
This right here, the Iranian war, has to look at least show some promise or be won already.
Actually, the polls, even on CNN, they showed that the American people, at least even within the Democrat, but the Republican Party was 87% and in climbing. And the Republican Party, the Democrat Party, also was in favor overall of the policies of what Trump's doing in Iran. So it's, I think that he already has shown a lot of advances. Most of their Navy, if not all, is gone. It's the largest military since World War II Navy removal of the U.S. naval forces, because of the like over 140 ships total, many huge, large ships, submarines taken out. I mean, it's like real warfare there. I mean, I can imagine it's like, when I did my 21 or so military years in U.S. submarines, we fired weapons, but they were, for war games, and they were not armed. And so actually doing that is got to be pretty incredible for the people on board the submarines. They must be totally new breed, that's for sure. And so, plus, with what the technology we have now is so significant that if they were to really bring it to force, I think they could pretty much win this very quickly. And it's just to minimize the loss of civilians is what they're doing, is doing not like World War II, where you decimate everything, like we saw Dresden and all of those, in Berlin, pretty much flattened by the Allies. This is a strategic, surgical removal of the military group. So in that case, it takes a little longer.
What's your thoughts of Bibi Netanyahu being killed? There's a lot of conspiracies floating around right now. There's been a lot of AI videos of him, proof of life. But a lot of people are not buying it. They're saying, I don't know. He looks like he could have been taken out. It looks to me like and even me, I'm watching these videos of proof of life, and Huckabee's face gets distorted. There's a missing finger again. It's not perfected, Gene. And I don't know. I don't know what to believe. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, let me explain the level of AI they have in the militaries. So they have super AI, super intelligence, artificial super intelligence, ASI. And they have teams of people that can go through a video once it's made and spot, along with the ASI, and spot any weird abnormalities like the coffee where it's almost overflowing, it's got surface tension over the top, picks it up, turns it an angle, it doesn't spill. 6 fingers, then he's missing a finger. Then the pocket closes on his hand without, he starts to put his hand in and the jacket moves over. All of those kind of anomalies, that's on purpose. They're showing that on purpose. That's comms, because they could put out an AI video of him that would be flawless, absolutely flawless. It's letting the world know, some kind of comm, that he's off the playing board. So from my intel that I have, he was taken to Berlin. I don't know where in Germany, but in Germany, in a coma. Whether he's still alive or not, that's
wow.
Another thing. Another thing entirely.
So, where there's smoke, there's fire. Is what you're saying? It does look like you're telling me that you're hearing he's gone.
He's definitely off the playing board. He's no longer a piece on the board.
So I'm going to play some of this video here that where they say he has the 6 fingers. Yeah, and this to me is so, people are going to look at these videos, comb over these videos, and dissect these videos, and so you're telling me they're purposely putting this out there to see. There's the 6 fingers right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, this
2 index fingers.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very strange. Very strange.
It's not just that it's that. Yeah, you would have to look at the coding. Yeah, if he had 2 little fingers, that would mean something different, or 2 ring fingers. But 2 index fingers, that's pointing something out. And he's having his hand like it's a gun, and yet he has another barrel. So it's like, could be meaning double-barreled, or pointing something out, and he's still got something else in reserve.
Interesting. Could it mean that he has a double, or wow, you're blowing my mind with this. So you're saying that this, because it was sloppy, Gene. It was very sloppy, but you're saying it was meant to be.
Yeah, they don't make mistakes like this at the level that this is at. It's like with Epstein, and people think he hung himself in that prison. That wasn't even him, because they're not going to let the world's largest asset for security be taken. When the White Hats took that island, they took him, and I'd be surprised if he's on the planet. But if he is in some place very, very, very secure, because you're talking somebody who had the ability to go into the White House and use a letterhead and, be just like he's Obama, or go into the UK and into 10 Downing Street. Same thing. In most countries on earth he could do that, except Russia. So you're looking at somebody that, had a massive power in every field. I mean, whether it's genetics or economics or trafficking or, the ACROM stuff or weapons, it doesn't matter what you're talking about. Elections, who gets in, he could get a premier appointed or removed. I mean, they're not going to just let that go. And the same thing goes with this. When you got somebody who's, we all know Israel for last, and now you're talking the head of Israel. So that's major. And so they would not have it where it's sloppy. It's sloppy on purpose.
Unless it's code.
Exactly. It has to be code, because it's purposely being done over and over. Not just that it's sloppy, but it's being done over and over. So, like the pocket going up, that's Masonic. How they put their hand in their jacket? Well, the hand's going in the jacket's going in that over the hand automatically. So, it's like maybe a shroud being pulled over. That's why I'm thinking he may be dead, because it's like a shroud going over the hand, and it's the left hand, so that has meaning too. And you have to know, all these comms, what they mean. I know what they mean traditionally, but in the new term, do they mean the same thing now?
So he's missing important meetings, which if you were alive, you would just, like Candace Owens said, you would just be alive. You'd just be breathing. You'd be going to these meetings. You wouldn't have to have proof of life videos. But
exactly. which tells me at the least he's in a coma. He's at least, at the very least, let's just put it, he may not be in a coma. The very least, he is unable to appear in public, standing up and talking or anything else. They're not going to show him in a hospital bed or something in, some kind of really severe condition. So it's in a situation where he cannot appear at the very least. But because of the symbols, I'll go by the old ones that I know, is saying he's dead.
Okay, so that being said, Iran would have to know this. Their intel has to be on top of this, and that would have to give them a huge boost of morale.
Yep.
That could be a problem.
No, that would be massive.
And that could change the whole game, Gene.
Yeah, because what happens when you get your enemy overconfident?
Makes mistakes. Pride cometh before the fall.
And they're considering that he's alive and he's in charge. So they're going to act like he's the one making. They know how the decisions are made based on his leadership. Well, what if that's no longer who's in the leader and making the decisions? Then they're operating on false pretenses. That's the art of war. You get them to be making false conclusions about how things are going to go. Additionally, on top of that, you get them overconfident and they make mistakes.
So you believe that this Iran war, will lead to the scary event, Gene?
I think it's fairly likely, considering how long it's already gone, that we have a Black Swan event. I figure it's at least 50-50.
So nuclear standoff type of situation?
Possibly a nuclear, at least like a blue beam nuclear weapon. It's not a real a blast that's not really nuclear, but made to look nuclear. Like you have blasts, like I was saying, where they blow up a building, and then when the smoke and dust and the fire clears, the building's still fine. You're like, what?
Right. Like David Copperfield type stuff.
Yes, exactly.
So the scary event must happen. It has to happen for humanity to make that shift, that change, that evolutionary jump. Why, Gene?
Because it's like Colonel Bossie said. You've got different, types of people: white hats, black hats, gray hats, yellow hats, and certain types. They're not going to, they look at the Epstein. Oh, did you see this stuff about the Epstein file? Oh, look what's happening with the Raiders. They don't really care until it hits them, and it scares the bejeebers out of them. They're not going to move until they have something massive to make a move.
But move where? Move how? Can you explain that?
Move to not being so lackadaisical, and where they're going to actually make a change and start being involved in their government, stop being, letting everything just go and trust the people they elected to do what they do without monitoring what they're doing and what they vote for and all of these things, and get involved in their government. It's a government of we the people, not a bunch of sheeple that are just putting people in charge and letting them run, and kind of sort of putting them in charge, not even putting them in charge anymore because the elections are fraudulent. So they have to get involved and, really take responsibility. That's how we got into the decision. But if you got a good 20-30% of the population, they're not going to move unless their pocketbook goes to zero and they get scared out of their mind. They're like, oh my gosh, they nuked this. Oh my goodness, it's a nuclear war. Here it comes. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, the Temple Mount, it's collapsed or something.
Right.
All of these, or some of these things happen. Oh, they're going to rebuild the temple. Oh my gosh, they're going to rebuild the dome, or it's one or the other. What is it? Oh my goodness, they're all scared. They don't know what's happening. It's when they are knocked out of their comfort zone and they can't reestablish that comfort zone without doing something, changing the way they are. They're not going to move and change the way they are unless they're scared out of their mind, and financially they're hit where it matters.
Gene, I know I could talk to you about this stuff. The Schumann residence is hiring, and it seems like the frequency of the planet is picking up. To me, to be quite honest, I wake up and it's Monday. I go to sleep and it's Monday all over again. It's like a week zooms by, and time and space seems to be speeding up to me. And I'm sure that's how all my entire audience feels.
I have it even where, you know, I've got an appointment. I got to get up for it at a certain time. Oh, I got 2 more hours to sleep. I lay down, trying to get comfortable, get ready to go to sleep. I look at the clock and it's already an hour.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to get comfortable. It should be like 5 minutes here.
right, exactly.
An hour go.
How do you explain that? Is that the resonance height?
No, that's the fact that CERN messed with time, and the timelines are messed up now. The time itself is actually, and we're coming to the CME, so time is actually flowing in different velocities at different times.
So time really is speeding up.
Yep, it is. I agree with you. Some weeks I get up and it's like, okay, Monday, and I'm going to do this and this, and I go to bed, and it seems like it's Monday again. A week has gone by, and other weeks I go, oh, it's tomorrow's must be Monday. No, tomorrow's Friday. I'm like, what? How did I get slowed down 3 days?
Right. I've listened to people like Terrence McKenna, who talks about time wave zero, and the Mayan and the I Ching calendar, I think it is, and how they actually are the same thing. He combined the calendars and talks about how time and space is going to speed up and novelty will spike
yes.
I guess you could, once we enter time wave zero, which was after really I think he said 2012, it really spikes. And honestly, that's what it feels like to me, Gene. I feel like time and space has sped up and everything is happening. There's a quickening now. Everything's happening 20 times, 50 times, 100 times faster than ever before. And every day it's speeding up.
Yeah. Well, in 2012, that's when CERN created the Higgs boson. And that opened temporarily a door into a demonic realm where Shiva resided. That's where they wanted to bring the god Shiva to destroy the world. Because in Hindu mythology...
That's Hindu mythology, right.
Yeah. Shiva dances the Tandali with Vishnu. It destroys the world. So that was their and all the billionaires had built their bunkers and were in there come that date, June 23rd, 2012. And the Golden Dome took the Higgs boson and surrounded it with a plasma field and sent it back to where it came from.
So we won that.
Yep. And then that caused an event later that year where 3 simultaneous coronal mass emissions happened that went between the sun and the earth. And so then that caused a change it surrounded those, but to do that, it caused a change in the time flow along with that event with the Higgs boson acerbated it. And then that created a shearing wave in the Earth's surface, what's called an extremely rare event, a super shearing event, which means it's the shearing event going through the Earth's crust is traveling at supersonic velocity. And it hit the dome, the Black Hat's dome off the coast of Kamchatka and destroyed it. And then they thought, okay, now there's going to be a tsunami in Alaska and down the west coast of Canada. And so they had tsunami warnings. And all that happened is as that went out of the Earth's crust into the ocean, a light went across the ocean at supersonic velocity through the ocean, and the ocean just raised up and then lowered back down without creating a wave moving forward. And then it hit the Alaska coastline and caused a event that destroyed one of their dumps in Alaska. The Cabal's dome. It's like it's the Cabal over and over getting hit. It's obviously the Golden Dome is doing it because it's steering everything. It's not going to an Alliance dome. It's not going to the White Hat's dome. It's destroying everything they're trying to do. So that event created a series of cascading events, one thing after another, all of which changed the timeline and changed the flow of time.
So the timeline has shifted. Are we in a convergence of timelines, or would that explain the Mandela effect, Gene?
Yes. And that time, people don't realize that time effects can move backwards, not just forwards. They could move backwards. So, like, I was at sea on an SSBN, and we come up once a day to copy a skid with a floating wire, up at a certain depth where the wire can get up. It's floating on the surface without the submarine surfacing, and you get news. And they said, "Oh, Mandela's been elected to the presidency." And I'm like, about half the crew was like, "What? He was killed in his cell. They hung him, beat him, and hung him from the bars." I go, "Yeah, I remember that. They even made a movie of it." "Oh, yeah, I saw that movie," another guy said. The other half of the crew, "What are you talking about? He just got elected. There's no such movie." So you have the movies like Shazam that no longer exist, with Shaq in it. And you've got, Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. And now, who's supposed to, and it doesn't say that
mirror
anymore.
On the wall, right.
Yeah. And all these things, I'm like, I like the original better because the movies were a lot better. The lines and everything. Build it and they will come. And just build it and he will come.
Is that what it says now? Build it
by itself.
Hold on. I didn't know that. If you build it, they will come. That's what it is?
Now it's build it and he will come.
No way.
Yep. And I'm like, who is this? God? Christ? He's going to play a game by himself? He pitches. He hits it. It's out of the park. He caught it out of the park.
Yeah, it's about all of them coming to are you sure they're just not messing with us? Is that if I go back and watch the movie, it'll say build it. If you build it, he will come?
Yes.
Wow.
Does that make sense? It's stupid.
It makes no sense, but if it's an alternate universe crisscrossing with I don't know.
Yeah. Like Forrest Gump. Build it, not build it, sorry. Mom always told me life is like a box of chocolates. That's not what it says now. Now it says life was like a box of chocolates. Well, what is it like now? It's like,
you're kidding me, man. So this is still happening.
Mm-hmm.
The reverberations of this Mandela effect are happening in everything.
Yeah, and they went back before 2012.
Is that why they have these rituals and ceremonies, in front of CERN, and they do things like this? They know how powerful this is. They know what kind of effects it's going to have on our reality. They know they're summoning what? Demons? Gods?
Yes, those rituals bring forth demonics. They bring forth all kinds of energy and power.
So this nuclear event or scare event, the quickening of that is obviously on its way. Yes. And they're obviously going to use that to bring in the third temple, the Antichrist, aliens, which I just had a podcast with L.A. Marzulli today, and he called them interdimensional intruders. And I really liked that term, that name. How do you look at that? Obviously, this is going to be a massive deception, correct?
Right. They're going to try to do this. The thing is remember, it's got to be at the right place at the right time. If it's at the wrong place at the wrong time, or the wrong place at the right time, or the right place at the wrong time, it isn't going to work. And if it's not done correctly, it isn't going to work. That's why, for example, they have in the Americas, we drive on the right side, so when you go around a traffic circle, you're going counterclockwise. All the tracks, everybody runs counterclockwise. If you go to a park, I go to a park every day to walk. Everybody's walking counterclockwise. I'm walking clockwise, or right down the middle, because I'm not going to do that, because it sets an energy. It doesn't matter if you know it or not. It sets an energy. When you get a massive amount of people doing that, and it sets an energy up.
That's incredible. So there's no way out of this, Gene. I mean, we can try to neutralize it as much as possible, but I guess the scary event is going to happen. Now, whether it's going to be real or fake, that's up to people's interpretations.
Yeah. I'm still 50-50 on it's going to happen. I'm not absolute, but I think it's fairly likely, at least 50-50. And if it does, I don't think it's going to be completely real. And it's not going to be at the right place at the right time in the right way.
You know, there's a lot of military officials coming out saying right now that there's drones swarming over Air Force bases here in America, Barksdale being one of them, the home of the nuclear B-52 bomber fleet.
This morning, a confidential briefing document reviewed by ABC News is disclosing that what was thought to be a single unauthorized drone flight was actually wave after wave of multiple illegal drone incursions over Barksdale Air Force Base near Shreveport, Louisiana, for nearly a week. The document called those incursions a significant threat to public safety and national security. Between March 9th and March 15th, the document said Barksdale security forces observed multiple waves of 12 to 15 drones operating over sensitive areas of the installation, which houses the Air Force's Nuclear Command and B-52 bombers. A spokesman confirmed Barksdale Air Force Base detected multiple unauthorized drones operating in our airspace during the week of March 9th. The spokesman said, "We are working closely with federal and local law enforcement agencies to investigate these incursions." The drones were unlike what's commercially available. They were high-tech, with a much longer range, and are resistant to jamming.
Certainly, it seemed to be more than just your average drone enthusiast who just pushed it too far. It looked like this was deliberate and intentional to see just how they would react. And seeing this probe on a base inside the United States is very troubling.
Aaron Katursky, ABC News.
You know, it does seem to me like they're encroaching on our airspace. Are these Iranian? Are they cartels? Are they both? This is obviously getting to the point now where people are going to say, this is getting a little too close for comfort, Gene.
Well, that's again for show. That's the white hats. It's false flag.
Okay, so you believe that's all show?
Yeah, you remember when they had people flying drones and they came out and picked the person up right away?
Yeah.
Yeah. They can bring that stuff down, EMP it down, particle weapon it down. It wouldn't even get close. Not even close. You're talking an Air Force base, a strategic base? Definitely it won't get close. They monitor everything from space. I mean, every square inch of the country, of the world. And so the technologies that are out there, and you talk about all the cams and everything, like the sleeper cells, they have infiltrators in all the sleeper cells. They know where they are. They know what they're planning on doing. And so none of this would even come about. Plus, most cities have millions of cameras, just like you saw in Fire Sale with, Bruce Willis, and, they shut all the power and all that stuff down. And they're tapping into the cams and moving things and changing stoplights and all that kind of stuff, because they have all that kind of control. And it's the same thing with the January 6th bomber, the pipe bomber. I guarantee you they tracked that person every square inch, everything they did. They know exactly who it was, where they went, what they did, because they have that level of surveillance now. And there's no way. I mean, there's a few places maybe you can go where you won't have that level of surveillance. There's some dark areas in the mountains, I know, in the Rockies, where you at least won't have, you'll have satellites on you still, but you won't have, the ability to get a signal or something like that. I mean, some minor stuff will be unavailable, like what they call dark country, like in the Steven Seagal movie. So you're looking at something that's being allowed to happen, or being made, even more likely, being made to happen to get people alarmed. Because again, you got to get people out of their complacency. And that's done by not just one thing. You do one thing, that's not going to make a difference. It's got to be one thing and another thing and another thing and another thing, to where they get scared. And then something big happens, and then they're, ah! But if you just have the big thing, they're going, they're just confused. But if you prep them beforehand, it's called psychological driving. You psychologically drive them, like a herd of sheep, you drive them into a certain mindset. And that's what the white hats are doing. They're driving them, while the black hats are trying to drive them in a different set of mindset. And this is all to be close to what the black hats to do, but not identical, because it's to wake them up, just like the Otto Pin presidency was. That wasn't really the president, But at the same time, the general masses thought he's totally that, and that's him, and he's doing this and that, and they saw how bad it is. And so if we hadn't had that, and they just, gone ahead and said Trump won and da 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 da, people would take it for granted. They would not wake up. They would not go, oh, so bad, and oh my gosh, and I lost my job, and I had this, and and then you have the warp speed, and you have these jabs and all this, and oh my gosh, and it just keeps the person reeling. Like when you're in the ring and you're boxing, you keep them on the rope. You don't let him get up. You just keep hammering him.
But what about natural disasters? I mean, if time and space is speeding up and things are changing on the planet, and we are all, beings of this planet, and we are this collective consciousness, wouldn't it be logical to say that, we're going to experience some serious natural disasters as well?
Yes, because people's minds can actually create them.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
They're
that makes
mindset.
We're creating our reality.
Yeah, precisely. That's absolutely correct.
I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much, Gene, for your time.
Thank you.
Coolest thing ever. Look, all the ICE agency at the airport doing security. They got the dogs out, vest on, whole setup. Man, it's like a movie in here. I gotta walk through while they working. This is wild.
Yeah, well, NATO hasn't been on America's side for a long time. They take everything, they give nothing. It's a one-way street, and Trump's been aggressively addressing those issues. And we're not going to have a one-way street anymore. It doesn't matter whether you're talking trade or defense or any other area. So I think Trump's been highly appropriate in addressing NATO the way we are. And then the other thing is, gosh, I don't know that I even need to say anything at this point. You said it all right off the bat. Anybody that thinks that we could just allow what's been going on to continue without pushing back with Iran and with other issues around the world, tag teaming against America, cumulatively, even Ali couldn't do the rope-a-dope all 15 rounds. He had to come out of his corner at some point in time. That's America.
That's a good analogy. Hey, I like that one.
Yeah, you gotta come out and start fighting. And we've been like Gulliver, all these little ropes and hooks, chains holding us down. Reality is, all we got to do is decide to stand up and pull all that stuff off and cut the crap. And that's exactly.
So what do you have to say so what do you think of these podcasters, man, that are coming out? Candace, so many of them coming out, Nick Fuentes coming out and, and just bashing Trump, saying we don't need this war. Charlie Kirk warned against it. What's the missing component? What are they missing here, Juanito? Why can't they see this? Why can't they see the forest through the trees here?
Well, I think it's a little different. Look at where they're getting their information. A lot of them have insiders, whether it be the Pentagon, the politics, and then other media information that comes out, not the kind that we were getting with O'Keefe. And by the way, let me just pause. Thank our Father in heaven for O'Keefe, for the beautiful work that he's doing. And they tried to take him out from inside his own organization that he created with his own vision, his own dream, survived all of those hits, and is still giving us this kind of amazing information to get the truth out there about the attacks that have been going on in America in so many different ways. How can you not just be, he needs like a Medal of Honor of some sort for doing battle in the most difficult situations, powering on, the undercover. I tip my hat to O'Keefe. Beautiful.
Well, I mean, he uncovered a lot in California. I mean, obviously they're now in the spotlight, but also Texas, right?
All over the country. I mean, think of all the various issues. Every kind of, the medical, the military, the contractors. He has done unbelievable work. But here again, this is just a slice of all the ways that we're being conned and manipulated within the vote. The way that politics really works, the money flow. I mean, look, who's paying these people to go out and get these votes and scrape these votes out of the bottom of the barrel? And, continuing to try and provide some level of legitimacy. Before we're all done, by the way, Karen Bass, I believe, is going to have a very bad hair day at some point in here. She's the mayor of L.A.
Oh yeah, this has got to come back to her,
totally. I mean,
and
the frauds in the vote. Oh.
And let's talk about Arizona as well. Maricopa, Katie Hobbs. I mean, man, they're all going to be having a bad hair day, correct?
Yeah, because one thing, I've mentioned it before to your audience. We already have grand juries in panel. They are hearing testimony right now. That it takes some time because of the global nature of the vote fraud, manipulation, the money flow. This isn't just, one little sliver off in the corner, go have the sheriff pick them up. You're talking about a worldwide operation by local people to steal a vote, not just America, but across the world. And so these grand juries, there's several now, well, more than one, have been hearing testimony on various aspects of this fraud. And they have already handed out some indictments, which have not been served yet, but the indictments can sit there until they're ready to, pounce several of the players simultaneously. It'll be snake bite for a lot of these people. Some of them know it's coming.
So let me ask you this. What about this federal judge in D.C. that issues new grand jury policy after failed indictments of Democrats? The chief federal judge for the District of Columbia has ordered that the judiciary be notified when a grand jury rejects the Trump's administration attempts to indict defendants, following the failed effort to charge 6 sitting members of Congress over a social media video. So he's on Judge James Boasberg said the rules applies when the effort is to indict comes first as a grand jury investigation. He said it would be in place for 120 days, but could become permanent.
Yeah, because these practices have been really injustices, not justice. And even here, you see that the judge is trying to get ahead of a problem. He doesn't want to be, himself in the crosshairs. Some of the stuff that's coming is going to affect into the judiciary and to alliances and communication, which are, ultimately illegal. So if you know that it's going on around you, and senior judges kind of know what's going on within the rest of the group, and sometimes they allow it, sometimes they nip it in the bud because it's a reflection on them. You see the direction things are going. He's making sure the guys know, okay, and women, no, we're not going to do that here. It's going to blow up in our faces. So, this situation is maturing faster than most people see because, again, the first really, really, really major arrests haven't happened yet. And for most everybody, even in this audience,
hold on.
Most of the people in this audience, it will not be real until they see.
I agree.
The first arrest, and even the very first arrest won't quite hit it for them. They're looking for specific arrests, and those are.
That's it. So the SAVE Act, do we expect that to pass? I mean, I mean, and would it be bad if it did pass? Don't we want this to go to an executive order? Isn't Trump ready for this executive order, the national emergency and executive order? I mean, isn't that really what we're waiting for here? Not so much the Save America Act.
Well, I think it brings the issue forward where we have to have a coherent conversation, and everybody has to put their cards on the table. You know, I said in the movie The Call that I did with Jennifer, everybody's going to have to pick a lane before this is over. Bringing it to a head and forcing everybody to pick a side. You know, we have people in the military and homeland security, in the politics. They've been kind of squishy in the gray areas. Well, we like Trump. We care about what he wants to do. But when push comes to shove, they're waffling because they're getting money. They got contacts. They're, you know, supporters. You know, the lobbying money is taking them off course. And so they're being forced to pick a side, pick a lane, and either be on our side or off, but not this fence riding stuff. And so the SAVE Act is helping people to see who's really not getting it or not going to participate to save the country. And Trump has said, you know, I'm not going to sign any more bills till this bill is passed. If they do pass it, it doesn't mean that Trump can't still do a national security order, emergency, regarding elections and or any other matter. But it would be helpful to have that in place. And if there's further needed to protect us on the elections, he can do that. The elections are already being frauded on the primaries. Massive fraud. Right there in Texas. Oh my gosh, Nino. The amount of fraud. See, if they pick the candidates in the primaries that go on the ballots, then you only have a choice between they're bad or worse. And so you pick the lesser of two evils, or people just say, I'm not even voting, it doesn't matter because, you know, it's all rigged. I mean, even for the Bernie supporters, remember Seth Rich was a Bernie supporter, but he was working inside the Democratic, the DNC. And when he saw the cheating going on inside the DNC, Debbie Wasserman Schultz had to step down because she got caught with all the cheating on behalf of Hillary. That was what was the final straw for him, because he knew there wasn't a fair election for Bernie. Total communist. I mean, just out of this world crazy. But if you can't get an honest election even there, then, you know, what are you going to do? We've got to take these people.
So how are the Democrats going to respond to this, Juanito? I mean, let's say Trump, the SAVE Act, I don't expect it to pass, to be honest with you, but let's say Trump signs the executive order. There's going to be lawsuits galore. They're going to not want to.
Okay, let me hold on. Let's clarify something. An executive order is insufficient for what's got to happen to fix the elections. An executive order, which Trump has done several regarding elections, the 107th executive order in this administration, this term for Trump, was March 25th of 2025, signed at 1:07 in the afternoon, and it regarded cleaning the voter rolls so that we couldn't have people voting who weren't American citizens, who were felons, who aren't authorized to vote. So that was not acted on. It was an executive order. All the counties, all the states were supposed to go in and clean up their voter rolls. Nothing happened. They just thumbed their nose, gave Trump the finger, gave America the finger. They weren't going to clean anything up with their voter rolls. It was supposed to be done within 180 days. That came and went. That was back in September. So an executive order without some teeth to it is a problem. So the governor said, well, it's, you know, the vote's about the states and the counties, and we run the vote, so we, you know, Trump can't tell us what to do. It's like Tina Peters. She gets a presidential pardon, and the governor thumbs his nose at the whole country and Tina and everything else. Yeah, we're in charge. and refuses to do that. Now, and by the way, no presidential pardon has ever been overturned in court or addressed. This is the first time that's ever happened, and Tina's still sitting in jail. You know, her health is very, very fragile. So prayers, please. Things are happening behind the scenes, but prayers, please. But let me hold on a second, So we come back to how can this be addressed? It will have to be. You were mentioning there'll be lawsuits, judges, everything else. Listen. When the president issues a national security, declares a national security emergency, he takes control not as the chief of police, but as the commander in chief. And the part that everybody here, there should be nobody in this audience who doesn't get this. America was attacked by China, Venezuela, Cuba, Serbia, a bunch of NATO countries in there helping. Some of our friends that are supposed to be our friends were helping behind the scenes with their intelligence operations. We were attacked by other nation states and people outside of our country within business, etc. It's like a James Bond movie. So we're not dealing with a policing issue merely, where somebody goes out and gets arrested, gets drugged before court, blah, blah, blah. It is stealing an election at the nation state level, one country to another, is the equivalent of dropping a nuclear bomb on another country. It is a weapon of mass destruction to steal an election, to interfere with an election. So we got nuked, and they put other people in power over America who weren't the will of the American people through subterfuge. And they paid big money to do it. They had traitorous, treasonous people at the highest levels assisting them within our government. But it was coordinated and done from outside the United States government borders, etc. We were attacked. The response by Trump ultimately will be a national security emergency. That is not an executive order. And in order to take control, he does it as commander in chief.
Well, could we see?
Hold on, I'm almost done. No judge can interfere with that during a national security emergency. And in fact, if a judge tries to take action to undermine the president, commander in chief's actions during a national emergency like that, they themselves can be thrown in jail. They can be arrested and thrown into jail for treasonous, traitorous activity during a national emergency, trying to undermine the commander in chief who's defending us from an external threat. And by the way, for America within the constitutional operation of America, this is an L event. This is a extinction level event. If we don't get this right, America as we grew up, believed it to be, knew it to be, ceases to exist, and we become part of the gray goo of this globalist new world order that they want to do. They just want to turn it all into gray.
So one question about this. I saw Candace Owens last night throwing Trump under the bus, saying Joe Kent has resigned. And a lot of people have questions about Joe Kent. What should we know about Joe Kent? Because to me, it sounds like he's basically a traitor, and he was once backing the Iran war at one time. You go look at his older tweets. He was all about going into Iran, and now he's like, oh, in good conscience, I can't do it. I can't back the president. What the hell is going on with Joe Kent?
Well, again, this intervening period, all the way back to the beginning of the first Trump administration, you've had people that had their own agendas. Joe Kent was playing the game all the way along at a crucial moment when everything counts. All of a sudden he comes out against Trump. Look, he was a Bernie supporter. He's been a Democrat all his life. All of a sudden he changes his story from what he had been saying to go this direction. You have people that literally are in these critical positions who are not, for lack of a better way of saying it, on our side, a conservative side, let's say, in a conservative administration. And so I don't know that traitorous or treasonous is a proper word in this context. I think that's like saying Nazi, okay? But he certainly wasn't.
But it says here, I just put the comment up. It says he was deployed over 11 times. He's no traitor, they say.
Yeah, again, that's what I'm saying. I think though that he certainly wasn't actually a supporter of the agenda that Trump is pursuing. And so at some critical moment, he comes out, says what he's doing. Okay, well, look at his history, his background. Was he ever really, truly in the Trump camp, or was he a fair weather warrior, feather in his nest, and then, finally breaks? Okay, well, I don't know of any Bernie supporters that would support anything that Trump is doing. So, he just came out and we now know who he is. But this period over the last many years, every area of our government, we're getting people coming out, being exposed, having to decisively take a lane, forced into one lane or the other. We're at that dividing place. You got to pick a side. And so, and then for the president going forward, if he hasn't got people that support him in critical locations, how can he do what needs to be done? For example, go back to the Bondi thing. If Bondi was trying to do what Trump wanted her to do and get the Epstein stuff out, and then the FBI doesn't provide that documentation, those papers, that material, doesn't even provide it to Cash, how are they supposed to do this? They're having to go in and attack within the machine people that are very deeply embedded. God. And by the way, you asked me another question earlier about these people. How can they turn on the president? Listen, if they're getting input from media, which is people that are being paid by advertisers, by money groups, even these people going out and getting the vote that O'Keefe is uncovering. Who's paying those people with their notepads going out and talking to the people and saying that the money that they're getting paid, they're not getting $15 an hour. And they're not just getting paid for an hourly, they're also getting paid per person to come up, scrape the bottom of the barrel, get these votes. Who's paying that money? How come it's worth the kinds of money that these people are spending to win an election? Because when they get their person in, just like Karen Bass, the mayor of LA, okay, what's her agenda? She is a person that traveled to Cuba many times and loved Fidel Castro, thought he was the greatest thing ever, okay? And she's mayor of LA. And was she even legally allowed to go to Cuba during that time period and support Castro? And then she becomes the mayor of LA. Are the people of LA actually that baked that they voted for a woman who's a supporter of Fidel Castro as the mayor of LA? Or are those votes cooked? And when they were cooked, someone was put into position to help make sure everything stays smooth in the takeover of California. The leverage. By the way, look again at what's going on at LA Unified School District. You have the guy who was superintendent of schools admitting he's not an American citizen. And then the questions on the credentialing. I got something going right now that we're deep into, looking at the credentials of numerous of these school superintendents, and they have none of the required credentialing, and yet they're in charge of putting onto the ballots huge bonds that become liabilities against the property of every single person that has property. And maybe you're a renter, but the guy that owns the property that you're renting from still has to pay those taxes. And California is as bad as anywhere in the country. Chicago, oh, wait till we get to Chicago and some of these other major cities. Oh my gosh, the fraud.
Look at that. Look what these assholes did to the sky. We're just gonna put their mess right here on the canvas. Nice bright lines, all crisscrossed, just like they dumped on us. And you know what? I bet the fake fog comes next.